consequences of this strategic tension. The first one is that CEOs have lost faith in their talent agendas. Many global CEOs, this is PricewaterhouseCoopers annual CEO study, where they go across to almost 15 or 1637 outside the workforce. So how does working age change in this country over the next 10 years? So this is the dependence ratio 2014 to 2024. So x-axis is looking back, growth, GDP. Y-axis is looking forward. Number of people coming out of schools and colleges, entering the workforce, and number of people hitting retirement ages, leaving the workforce. How is that ratio changing? So if you are at 0 on the y-axis, it means that your workforce won't change over the next 10 years. It remains the same. If you're above, it means your workforce will increase. Lots of young talent coming in and fewer people retiring, you have more people working. If you are below the line, your workforce will shrink. Okay, you with me? X-axis looking back, Y-axis looking forward. Now let's put some data on this. Let's put some noise on this chart. Okay, so these are some countries now across the world, how they play out across these two variables, how they correlate. On this side, you have countries growing faster. On this side, you have countries growing slower. Where on this chart do you think the United States is? Where is the US on this chart? Anyone? From whatever you know. Is it growing faster, slower? So which of these four quadrants? Top right, bottom left. And what we know about baby boomer retirements and so on and so forth in the States. Where do we see the US? We're just playing with some countries now. Top right, okay, here. Your top right. Top left. Anyone else? Little exam, right? You're not going to get a free lunch. You have to do a little test first. But no wrong answers here. We're just playing with this. Here? Yeah? Bottom left, you're absolutely right. The US is actually an easy one. I'm going to come to tougher countries. The UAE is also not on this map. I'm going to think about the UAE. So this is where the US is. Okay, grew at on average 1.5%. Crisis, post-crisis, all of that stuff averaged off. Now growing at about 2.1%. Last year of Barack Obama, as things stand, and has grown at about 1.7% over these last 10 years. Lots of financial services growth and so on. Make it a little higher. We're moving eastward. Where's Russia? BRIC country, Goldman Sachs says go and invest. Okay, we're going to answer this specific question for you using data, using evidence today, right? The research that I will share comes from my book, Talent Economics. I published this in 2013. I stay in Singapore, but this is a global viewpoint. It has research from 45 domestic talent markets, essentially 45 countries across the world, and what's happening to their macro talent environment and their micro talent environment. I'll explain both through the day. What's happening between now and 2020 and 2025? Right? These are the strategy timeframes that are of great relevance to business. This is what business really wants to get on top of. You know, what's going to happen to our people context of business. How is disruption going to work, and so on and so forth in our industries and things. So we will go through a lot of this through the session today. The first point I'd like to make is the fact that, look, it's not easy being a business leader. It's not easy running a business in today's environment. What the evidence shows us is that we see in the boardrooms across the world, this is a global viewpoint now to start with, we see a convergence of strategy, right? Now, let me give you a few examples of this convergence, right? As you run a global company, you're operating across multiple markets, multiple regions. The first part of the strategy agenda that is converging is capital. Where we raise money, we can now float our shares on multiple stock exchanges. Many companies do that very successfully. They raise capital from various different, macro capital environments. We can issue debentures in multiple currencies. In most organizations, if you look at their balance sheets, it's quite diversified across the world, right? So our ability to raise capital and deploy that capital allows us to converge a common financial strategy for an organization. You with me? Does that make sense? The second one is intellectual property, also converging. Today you can have an R&D center in Bangalore or in Poland or in Silicon Valley and use the R&D, the patents, the IP across the planet. Look at Apple. What has Apple done with its phenomenally successful product line? They've built a great product and they've leveraged that IP to build a great distribution network across the world to get that singular product out to as many consumers as possible. So, even integrated patent management, integrated R&D are driving a convergence of this global strategy. The third part is technology. So you can now have software, and it's much easier in the cloud. The cloud-based environment, physical boundaries almost disappear. You can have software on one server sitting somewhere serving people in radically different geographical environments, in the same time. So we're seeing a convergence of technology strategy. The one area where strategy is not converging is people. Now this is a paradox, and this is creating tremendous tension in boardroom conversations, because CEOs are saying, I'd like to have one-size-fits-all approaches. I'd like to have one talent strategy for my organization across the world. But the evidence tells us that that is virtually impossible. Let me tell you why. We have, on last count, 3.62 billion people in the organized global workforce. Right? Now, these are people who are employed or running their own micro businesses, running their farms, working for others, working for themselves, but in the organized sector. So these are people that contribute to national GDP, 3.62 billion people across the global workforce. Each of these people wake up every single morning looking to pursue an economic endeavor. These people are looking to create value every single day for the economy, for their employers, for themselves, for their customers, whoever it is. So they are part of our economic universe. Now the evidence tells us that 211 million people within this sphere of 3.62 billion live in a country they were not born in. Okay, so we can start calling them mobile talent. Okay, 211 million. Of this 211 million, 17 million are refugees. Because of political, economic, other reasons, persecution, they now live in a country they were not born in. That number is slowly inching up, as the Syrian crisis and other things are playing out across the world. So about 190 odd million are economic migrants. They've either moved for education or they've moved for work. Okay? What this tells us, you divide this 190 out of 3.62 billion, what it tells us is that 94% of our global talent is domestic. Is surrounded by domestic environments which make it very, very insular and localized. Language, culture, education, work preferences. All of this is incredibly domestic. The way I look at work, my relationship with work in Hungary is very different from my relationship with work in Brazil. It's very different from my relationship with work in Dubai or in Sydney. How I see work in my sphere of life, or how does it fit in, how I look to see what is contribution, my worldview, is very, very different. And because of family factors, culture, language, preferences, visa, immigration, this talent is never going to be global. So unfortunately, what is happening to global business is that we are seeing massive strategic tension in trying to manage a disaggregated global workforce using similar approaches across the world, a similar management philosophy, a similar toolkit.